Hello, I'm Valentin Mandace from Historic House Romania Case d'Epocă, and welcome to my podcast. I would like to speak about the foul-smelling problem, the poo-smelling, proper say, problem which you encounter often when you visit Bucharest historic houses, old houses. I do a lot of field work in Bucharest, and I have part of my work is to visit the courtyards and also the interior of those houses. And it's one of the problems which strikes me in a way as soon as you open the toilet door, but very often again within the house itself. Why is that? Basically, is because of the very old for Bucharest standards, of course, infrastructure, sewerage system of the town, the bad pipeworks of the houses, and bad and old pipe works of the houses, and the fact that they haven't been maintained at all, or just cosmetically, let's put it that way, throughout their existence. So they are in bad need of renovation, of rehabilitation, of rework, redesign, everything to put there. A very expensive operation, which for a town of the size of Bucharest, with about 3 million people, is the 6th largest town in the European Union, and after London will go, is going to be the 5th largest town of the European Union. You can imagine that for its central areas, which is this old infrastructure, over 100 years infrastructure, it needs billions and billions of euro. The town hall doesn't have this money, and also people do not have money for their own sewage systems, their pipe works at their houses. So it is quite a prevalent problem. I have, for example, often requests from people to find or to if I have news about houses, old houses for sale, period houses for sale from expatriates or locals, but most of them I don't recommend that, because when I go and visit those kind of houses I encounter such a problem, and I'm absolutely sure they would not like to spend their hard-earned cash on this kind of thing. So you still have to wait up until the town will be up to scratch again from that point of view. Nevertheless, as I said, it has a glory regarding the sewage system just before the Great War in the interwar period. But how the locals managed with human waste before the sewage system, or when this one was implemented, because it wasn't over the night in the period before the Great War when they had the works. It took a while, a few decades. Obviously, like in many other towns in Europe before the modern era of modern infrastructure and sewage systems, you had in your garden an outhouse, outside toilet, where the river, the local river as is here, Dâmbovița, was basically a canal of foul-smelling canal of human waste. And waste, in the case of Bucharest, that was up until the Great War. The outhouses, these open toilets, are quite rare now surviving in Bucharest, and I found just a few in my field work, and one of them is here. Is the entrance, of course. This is the most architecturally appealing thing of the outside toilet, the outhouse, how it's called, of a little peristyle house in Gara de Nord area, northern train station of Bucharest. So this one dates from 1890s, 1890s, more precisely. And as I said, just a handful of them are still around. This public works to bring clean water in Bucharest and to take out in normal ways, in proper modern ways, the human waste, the sewerage, were implemented in a big phase in 1911, 1914, and I have here images from a silver plate commemorating those events just before the Great War. It's a water tower here, pipes, works, and everything, and these are the officialities which contributed to the implementation of this extraordinary project. The main designer and overseer of these works was the engineer Elie Radu, who has a very nice, interesting early Neo-Romanian house in Icone area. And because of him and his work and his workers, Bucharest suddenly had the modern European standards of living in that times, about 110 years ago. And it practically doubled the life of the population, because the locals wouldn't have now again waterborne diseases and many other ailments because of unclean water, and that contributed to the very important raise of the life expectations of the locals. And probably if they will do again these works properly in 21st century nowadays, again it's expected that the average lifespan of a Bucharest person will increase, in my opinion, with another decade or 5 years. At the moment, people, in my opinion, in Bucharest, they live a bit shorter than in the rest of Romania. So these are the commemorating those wars of more than 100 years ago, before the Great War. Sometimes if you go in central areas of Bucharest, you can see the old man house of this sewerage system, like this one. They're easily recognizable because you can see the spelling of it, which is the old spelling before the Great War. Bucharest, SCI, now is spelled with STI. This is Turkish-Bulgarian way, which is typical here at the border of Bulgaria of spelling Bucharest. And Canalizare, today is spelled with a Z, now there is an S. So that is the spelling before the Great War. So they are nice, and they should be kept as old pieces of furniture of old Bucharest, but what is underneath there is again as old as the manhole. So they have to modernize what is underneath this manhole cover for a canal. Another problem with these canals, they are old, and even if they are done well with Victorian brick, engineering brick and methods, again the Bucharest soil, because here we are in a very marshy area of Romania, the soil undertakes subsidence, and it just destroys the natural flowing of the sewerage, sometimes reversing its flow, and you have in your garden full of bad smell and human waste. In the interwar period, that was the time of glory for Bucharest health standards. And if you go in town, sometimes you see on the walls this kind of window screens. These are for Neo-Romanian style houses, and they mask the window of a toilet with this kind of ornamental work. It's Christian symbolism, and I have happened to spot it, the model, the archetype for it, at my recent study trip in Ravenna in December last year at the Lombard Church. So it's a copy of an early Christian motif on a Neo-Romanian style house, where the Art Deco houses are excellently provided. Top-notch toilets, like in the rest of the world, like the United States, for example. This one is the window of a toilet in Cotroceni, which is like on a boat, on an ocean liner, which is one of the main themes of the ocean liner, of the Art Deco houses in Bucharest. You have the rule of three with 3 window panes, 3 window layers, and the toilet is like in a ocean liner cabin. Or toilet floors. This one is made from very fine tile work. Unfortunately, many of these soils, toilet soils, tile work are replaced by nowadays Bucharest with Chinese ceramics, Chinese tiling, which is considered much more prestigious. It shows to you the lack of culture and the thing that the locals do not appreciate. The inheritance of their ancestors. It shows to you what communists can do for you, even in that instance. Or here we have the window of a toilet, Art Deco house toilet in Armenească area of Bucharest. Here is the toilet roll, for example. All of these things are from my field work. Or in town, in the time of Carol II, in the 1930s, there were ample public works in towns, and we had public toilets. Nowadays in Bucharest, you barely have public toilets. This one is not working anymore, of course, but it's full of foul smells. There's this poo smell. Bucharest now it's full of porta cabins, these plastic toilets made cabins which generate an even more terrible smell. And if you want to use a proper toilet in town, you have to go to a McDonald's. And that is the problem with old houses. For example, on my architectural tours, from time to time, we are invited by the locals to see that old house, the period house, and they excuse us about the smell. I had this problem with visiting an old house with my tour party in Dorobanți area or in Domeni areas, and these are prime real estates of Bucharest. Sometimes they have prices like in Paris for the real estate. So that is a problem for you to know if you want to buy a house, old house in Bucharest. The prices are sky high here. It's an immature market. The sellers can afford themselves to wait because the property taxes are very small, and they can wait for years for the right to angle the right buyer at the high price. But if you want to buy something, you have to ask reasonable for a discount because of this problem. It's another investment to put right the local sewerage system or the house or something to get around this foul smell. And added to that, when you buy an old house in Bucharest, you have the judicial problems because of the bad restitution legislation from the communist times when communists confiscated the houses, and also it's the thing that always you can have a big glass tower built next to you, so destroying your environment, or parks around where if you want to renovate, restore the house, it's very expensive. The workforce is not really qualified in renovating in a historic manner a house, so you have to do 2 or 3 times this work, more expensive than in the West, like in France or Britain, for example. So lots of expenses, at which you can add this problem with the sewage system. So you have to make an informed decision. So I hope that by drawing attention to this more esoteric and a bit amusing for us from outside aspect of Bucharest's infrastructure, I'll help you making informed decisions regarding the real estate market for historic houses in this soon to be, after London will go from European Union, 5th largest European town of the European Union, largest town of the European Union. So I hope that you found interesting the video, and we'll see each other as soon as possible. Thank you and goodbye.